Mysticism is an approach to our reality that's somewhat different from the normal, rational, intellectual perspective of life. The mystical approach says there are things happening that go beyond the senses. There are things happening in other realities. All we need to do is to learn how to attune to these other realities. Mystics have different traditions that they use as vehicles for attunement. What's fascinating about the study of mysticism is that almost all of the mystics have the same language, have a way of communing with one another in a way that transcends the limitations of individual traditions. So a Sufi mystic can commune with a Christian mystic, and they can sit with a Jewish mystic or a Buddhist mystic and all be speaking the same language. It's as if there's what was once described to me as the mystical fragrance. When you're dwelling in the mystical fragrance, then all differences fall away. The mystical experience is much more universal than is commonly believed. Many people, from their rational perspective, look at mystics as if they're unique or strange or in some way gifted beings on this earth, that they were struck with a special light that transformed them into a different reality. But mystical insight is much more common than we realize. Anything that we experience that takes us out of our regular awareness of the past and the future and brings us completely into the moment where there is no sense of time is a mystical experience. For example, if you're walking in the woods and you're drawn to a butterfly, landing on a flower in that moment, where you let go of everything that you brought to your walk and you're not thinking about what you're going to do. When you go back home in that moment, there's an uplifting of the heart, and that's a mystical experience. When you walk into a room and there's an infant who looks up, gazes, and makes some kind of connection, your heart melts and opens. Time falls away. That is a mystical experience. And so there are many types of mystical experiences. There are some, like these, that are instantaneous, that lighten our hearts for the moment, and then we continue in our normative state of mind. There are others that are more intense, that often happen in times of stress, when we're very ill, or when, God forbid, a friend or a family member is in the dying process or has just passed away. We'll often have experiences where time disappears and we make a connection with some unknown world that profoundly touches our heart. Those are more intense, and we can remember those for days and sometimes for weeks after they occur, often even years later. We can remember that moment when we had a special connection with something, somewhere that transcended our normal reality. Occasionally, there are the big mystical experiences, the transformative experiences, those when we're touched in a way that our lives are altered forever from that time forward. Those are the kinds of experiences that many spiritual seekers want to have, look for, or expect to have if they practice long enough and hard enough. Many say that those experiences only happen through the grace of God or through the grace of something, and that it's not predictable when such an experience will occur. It is true that we cannot predict when mystical experiences will occur, but we can enhance the potential for being in the frame of mind and for being receptive enough so that we're much more aware when the smaller mystical experiences are occurring. And frankly, they're occurring all the time. And we enhance the possibilities for having the bigger experiences just by allowing ourselves to be present in the moment as often as we possibly can. And this is the practice of awareness of the moment. Now, all of the teachings that we're going to be discussing in Jewish mysticism and Kabbalah now, mystics have a universal language. They somehow commune with each other in a language of commonality, and yet there are many different traditions that can lead to higher awareness that we sometimes identify as mystical consciousness or mystical awareness. Different traditions have different approaches or different disciplines to enhance the possibility for higher awareness. As they say, in many of the traditional worlds, all the paths ultimately lead to the same goal. And Judaism is no exception from this belief. There are various paths up the mountain, so to speak, but there's only one ultimate reality that in the West we call the divine reality. And in other traditions it has different names, such as Buddha mind, the unborn, the unconditioned. In the Kabbalah they call it the Ein Sophia, the infinite nothingness. So some people ask then, why choose one path over another? Is one path better than another? And the answer that I found for myself is yes. In fact, some paths are better than others, from a subjective point of view. Objectively, no path is any better than any other. Subjectively, some paths are more conducive to our nature, more conducive to our way of being. So I would say to you, as you explore your spiritual path, try out various traditions, see what works for you, then find a practice and work with it. And on occasion, perhaps explore other paths to see how it will enhance your personal path. But as is said in a wonderful teaching, if you're looking for water, it's much better to drill one deep well than to dig many shallow holes.